This is an absolute must-win for the Los Angeles Rams. We got 5 keys to victory, some interesting injury updates, and predictions. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor. Join the party. Hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, hit the like button for your Los Angeles Rams podcast listeners. Write us a review or read on the show. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've covered LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, Bleacher Report, SI, Dodgers Nation. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre, half, and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's in his 11th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. Now, on today's episode, we've got the keys to a Rams bounce-back win over the Colts. We got some big injury updates, some predictions, some key matchups. And let's get right into it, Travis. So let's talk about some injuries. It was just a couple minutes ago we learned that the Colts have ruled out Alec Pierce. A concussion last week. He will not play in this game. You still have Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor. You have Daniel Jones. And this is a Colts team that Sean McVay said has the best offense in the National Football League. Daniel Jones, Indiana Jones, a great franchise, by the way. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend it. Will this be the Temple of Doom with this Rams pass rush going and making things heck for him? But let's just start there. Is this Colts team for real? Are they frauds? What say you?
Well, I would like to piggyback by saying that the Indiana Jones franchise is one of the most iconic movie franchises in history, right up there with some of the great Star Wars and whatever else it is that you're into. So for sure, I think everybody would agree that those are some of the best. Look, this is about Indiana Jones. This is about him. This is about whether or not he's able to be a real quarterback or whether actually he's Daniel Jones, whether he's Danny Dimes in a disguise. Because if he's pretty good, and by the way, he might be, we'll see. I keep going back to Saquon, and I don't mean to compare Saquon to Daniel Jones because Saquon is, he's Saquon Barkley. He's a, MVP candidate along the way. But you saw Saquon outside of New York, and you saw Saquon with New York, and it was different. Maybe the same thing's true with Daniel Jones. Maybe Daniel Jones out of New York is a different quarterback than he is with the Giants. And so far, he's looked like it. He hasn't thrown an interception yet. He's only been sacked a couple of times along the way. And if he can play well against this Rams defense, I think we're going to have a totally different opinion of the Colts coming out of this. If the Rams go in there and knock them around, if the Rams go in there and win this game by, 7 points, 10 points, 13 points, whatever, I think we're going to go right back to the Colts played Tennessee. They played Miami. They got lucky against Denver. They played another good team and they got smoked. But if they come in to LA, play well, he plays well, this is a totally different story. The Colts have the Colts have the opportunity that the Rams had a week ago to go into Philadelphia. Now, whether they're able to take advantage of it where the Rams weren't, we'll see. But I think this whole thing turns on Daniel Jones. If he's good, the Colts are dangerous. If he's Daniel Jones, I think the Rams walk up and down the field on him.
That's absolutely the number one biggest thing. Is this a fluke? Is he going to come down to earth? Is Cinderella going to turn into a pumpkin? Is he going to be Raiders of the Lost Ark, Indiana Jones? Or is he going to be Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, Indiana Jones, right? And I think for him, the big difference in his production is, like you said, sometimes change of scenery. He's still wearing blue, but Colts blue has been better for him than Giants blue. And he's been a lot better against the blitz. With the Giants, a 40.9% success rate on dropbacks against the blitz. With the Colts, somehow it was Steichen, and things have changed. A 59.6% success rate on dropbacks against the blitz. 27 is 43 passes have been completed for 415 yards against the blitz. So point is, when you get pressure on him in the past, he struggled. Now when you get pressure on him now, he can get the job done, and he's a lot better than he's been. So I think it comes down to, if you do get pressure with this front four, Chris Shield is not a guy that's going to be crazy aggressive on blitzes because of how successful they have been with guys like Byron Young and Kobe Turner and Jared Verse and Braden Fisk. Let's see how he handles that pressure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The Rams got a ton of pressure on Jalen Hurts in the first half of last week's game, and we saw what that looked like. Jalen Hurts won a Super Bowl. Okay, Jalen Hurts has been playing in big games pretty much his entire life. You know, go back to Alabama, go to Oklahoma, go to his entire career in the NFL, and the Rams made him look real uncomfortable for a half. And then all of a sudden, that pressure disappeared. The Rams weren't able to get, the pressure on him that they were early in that game. And Daniel Jones isn't Jalen Hurts. So if they're able to give pressure on him, I think he will crack. I think he will break. I think he will make mistakes. I think that they can really start to tee off. I think it gives the secondary a break, something that, and look, Michael Pittman's really good. Tyler Warren is really good. They've got some weapons along the way. But I don't know if they have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. I don't think they've got that going on. So I think the Rams have a little bit, and I don't want to say an advantage, but they're at less of a disadvantage than they were a week ago. So I do like the matchup for the Rams. I do think that it turns on that pass rush versus Daniel Jones and his ability to handle it.
There's no doubt about that. I mean, it's definitely going to be one of the most important things for the Rams to win this game. And I think even more important than that, I would say, and we saw the Rams have success last week against an elite running back, is can you not stop Jonathan Taylor, but can you contain him? Because through 3 games, this is someone that you have leading the conversation for Offensive Player of the Year. We saw the Rams' success against Saquon Barkley last week, but the Rams, they've been doing a lot better job in tackling this season. They've allowed the 8th fewest yards after contact in the NFL. They have a league low 8.5% missed tackle rate. That is a massive improvement from last season. But Jonathan Taylor, I mean, all that hype, all that focus on Saquon Barkley, maybe it was the guy that was the week following him that was going to give the Rams the biggest fits. And Jonathan Taylor is going to be a problem.
Jonathan Taylor leads the league in rushing. Jonathan Taylor is a terrific back. And look, here's the good news / bad news. The Rams figured out how to deal with Saquon Barkley, and that's really good news. But like you said, Jonathan Taylor is, right on his heels. So there's a little bit of a war of attrition. The Rams are going to play the following 4 guys in 4 consecutive weeks. They're going to play Saquon Barkley, Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, and Derrick Henry. Those are the 4 guys they get in a row, right? They don't play those guys over the course of a season. They play those guys over the course of 4 weeks in the NFL. Now, if they come in and do a pretty good job on Taylor this week, then I think that Rams fans can feel pretty comfortable that the Rams have a rushing defense that is legitimate. And look, McCaffrey's terrifying. McCaffrey is always an incredibly difficult cover. And Derrick Henry's Derrick Henry. But at least you're thinking, okay, we got a little bit of something going on. If Jonathan Taylor comes in and runs up and down the field on the Rams or has a big day, and now you've got McCaffrey on a short week. The Rams defense is not maybe what we thought it was against the run. You got Derrick Henry waiting after that, and we could be having a very different conversation here in a couple of weeks. But I mean, the Colts, it's funny, Doug, because when we were talking during the offseason and the schedule comes out, we're like, okay, Houston's an opportunity. They're going to beat up on Tennessee. Tennessee stinks, and we'll see what happens in Philly. It's a tough game. It kind of went like we thought it would go through the first 3 weeks. But this is the first game you're like, no. Indy doesn't stink. Indy was supposed to be an easy mark at home, all of that stuff. This is a totally different game.
Absolutely. And I don't know how we're going to do this next year, but next year, Travis, when we get the schedule release, like we're going to do something like no other pods do. We're going to have complete fun with it. We're not going to take it too seriously at all because I'm telling you, they're mostly pointless. Like they truly are. Right. I mean, think about I went back and read some of them from May and what they said about the Colts. They have no connection to this current Colts team. They're so pointless, and that's a perfect example. Is this a good 3-0 Colts team? And they have high upside talent. They have a great coach, I think, that's really doing a good job with the current talent. And it's going to be very telling to see, was last weekend Saquon Barkley for real? Right. Because what burned them last year against the Eagles in the division round, it was those explosive runs, and 38.2% of Jonathan Taylor's explosive plays, rushing yards, have come on explosive runs. So the explosive runs are there. He breaks tackles. He's 3rd in the NFL in causing missed tackles. He's 65% 0.7% of his rushing yards have come after contact. So all of these things we've talked about as far as how do you take this Rams team to the next level in the offseason are going to be tested against Jonathan Taylor as far as making tackles, avoiding explosive runs, and not having him be a big part of the game. You got to make him man of the house, Jonathan Taylor, not Lion King Jonathan Taylor. Okay, of course, I'm talking about Jonathan Taylor Thomas. I'm going to show myself out. Okay, the first one worked, that one didn't. The first one worked, that one failed.
No, I was with you. I was waiting for a home improvement reference, but we got there. We got there.
You think the kids today will ever realize how big of a star JTT was?
No. Look, you had to be there. You had to experience it in real time. It's like, it's like anything else. You can learn it. You can learn about it in a book or on TV, but you have to have lived it to really experience in full the Jonathan Taylor Thomas era. It was one of one. Look, I think that all of these things that we have said are true. This is also true. The Rams should beat the Colts. The Colts have good players. They have a good coach. They have good running. They have a very good running back. They may have a quarterback that at least is NFL capable. Okay, fine. Beat them anyway. The Rams. If the Rams are the team that we think they are, if our final takeaway from the Philadelphia mess was missed opportunity, but there's still a lot of really good there. This is still a very good team. Bounce back this week and show us.
Major bounce back opportunity. I'm hoping for an angry win against the Colts. And coming up next, more keys and some specific key matchups that the Rams have to win to get a win, and some injury updates, some not so good ones for the Rams too. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
This episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by Square, your favorite neighborhood spots, I should say, run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like a home, right? Whether it's the local sports bar packed on game days, you have one. I definitely have one. The coffee shop that knows your order right by when you come in the door, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the sort of places that bring people together in all of our neighborhoods. And when neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives, right? There's a local spot that I go to down in Dana Point here that I absolutely like. The servers all know our names. Me and my wife, we go in there. They know what we like to drink on a Saturday afternoon. It's just great. And it makes you feel like you're home. It makes it feel like a community, right? Those are the local spots that make all of us feel like we're at home. And Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnNFL to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. They'll be very happy that they did, and you'll be very happy that you did. Square, we'll see you in the neighborhood.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also want to give a big shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. Cannot thank you enough. If you are new to the pod, new to the show, join the Every Listeners Club. That's where you watch or listen to an episode Monday through Friday every time we drop, and then you won't miss a thing about your favorite football team. All right, Travis. So here in our second segment, we're going to get to those key matchups, but some injury updates to get into. On Wednesday, you had a couple starters miss practice, Devontae Adams and Rob Havenstein. They should be able to go, but they also missed Thursday. They've been sidelined. And then also Tyler Higbee, he showed up on the injury report with a hip injury. Steve Avila, Justin Dedich, and Colby Parkinson all remained limited. But it doesn't seem like it's too concerning, but I need to see Steve Avila back in there to really get some cohesion on this offensive line.
Yeah, I think so too. Avila coming back would be really nice. I think Dedich has been okay along the way. Kevin Dotson needs to play. You saw when we got into the second layer of the depth. We've talked about this a million times, Doug. When the Rams have struggled more than anything, it's when their offensive line depth really gets tested. And we saw it get tested last week. All of a sudden, you got Bo Limmer, who is a center by trade. He can play guard if you need him to play guard, but he's guard number 4. And he really had a rough day against the Eagles. So, if you got to go to your third guy, okay, and that's Dedich. But obviously, you want your first 2 guys out there. that I think is at the top of the list as far as injury goes. All those. Havenstein is the Terminator at this point, man. Like I don't know if he's ever going to stop playing football. He might be out there in the year 2237 still holding down right tackle. I mean, he was a St. Louis Ram. That's how long that Rob Havenstein has been around. So I think that he'll get it figured out. I know Davante Adams is going to figure it out. He's not going to miss a game. He's got a real quarterback, and that kind of brings me to the next thing is that all of these other things, the offensive line, the Davante Adams, all of that is a lot more palatable if Matthew Stafford plays better. Stafford had a really bad game on Sunday. I know that the numbers weren't dreadful, but how many different open guys did he miss? He hits one or two more of those passes, and all that other stuff really doesn't matter. He hits Puka on that one that he missed high. He might score right there. We saw him miss Davante a couple of times. So the offensive line is first, but I think Stafford's right behind him at number 2.
I agree. I mean, definitely looking for a big day for Matthew Stafford. And this is a Colts team that has the 4th worst pass rush win rate in the NFL. And this year, Matthew Stafford's getting the ball out quicker. I think a lot of that has to do with adjusting to some underperformance from the offensive line, maybe not wanting to take some hits because of the back. But also, I think that you're going to see him with time to throw. And they're going to try to get things right. I think it's a get-right game for the Rams offense and Matthew Stafford. I think they could go north of 30. I think you're going to see his best game of the year from an efficiency standpoint. We're going to see him push the ball down the field more. This is a Colts team that does play a lot of zone. So I think you'll see Puka find some soft spots in those zone like he's so great at doing. But I also think they're going to take some shots with the Davante Adams. But yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you with Rob Havenstein. I mean, he's a guy you don't worry too much about. It's like when Freddie Freeman is slumping. It's like, are you really that worried about him? Right. And you mentioned he like him being the Terminator, right? Are we going to get Terminator 2 Rob Havenstein, or are we going to get Terminator Genesis Rob Havenstein? And that's kind of what. Okay, I'll end with that. But I mean, I totally agree. Just having
Doug, I've never seen it. I don't know what you're talking about. Is it good?
Hey, look, let me explain to you. Okay, here's my PowerPoint presentation of why you should watch the Terminator series. But yeah, another thing too, Travis, is one thing that, all jokes aside, is giving me concerns is this Rams secondary based on what we saw down the stretch where they forced Jalen Hurts to be a passer and he started cooking. And you saw the third down play to Davante Adams. I mean, to AJ Brown. You saw Devontae Smith make a big play. And when more talented receivers go up against this Rams secondary, especially one-on-ones against their cornerbacks on the outside, they tend to win those matchups. So a matchup I'm looking for is Emmanuel Forbes versus Michael Pittman Jr. because the Rams struggled against A.J. Brown with Akella Witherspoon out, and the bigger receivers, 6'4" type of dudes, they can expose guys like Darius Williams and Kobe Durant.
Yeah, and look, bigger receivers too. What was the knock on Emmanuel Forbes when he came over from Washington last year? When we saw him in a Rams uniform for the first time, is, dude, where's the rest of him? Right? He's just such a slight guy. He's a great athlete. He's an incredible, playmaker on the ball when he gets an opportunity to do that. But sometimes you just got to cover and you got to win. I mean, you saw what was going on against Philadelphia. They were just bigger and stronger, and they were just beating guys to the football. So I think that's a big part of this. Do the Rams have the physicality to do this? Akella Witherspoon, nobody's going to confuse him with Jalen Ramsey, but he was physical, right? He was physically able to kind of hold at the point of attack, and these other guys are going to have to win more often in those situations. And look, all of this gets taken care of if those 4 guys up front get home regularly, and Daniel Jones has to deal with, move his feet and deal with pressure and decisions under duress and all that kind of thing. But if he's got time, the Rams secondary is clearly where they're the most vulnerable. I mean, by a mile. But maybe the special teams, now that I give it a second thought, but the back end of the Rams defense is not their strength. So the more opportunities that anybody, whether it's Daniel Jones or whoever they have in any given week, have to look and pick them apart, they're going to win more often than not. That's why the impetus is on the front 4.
No doubt about it. I think even in those situations, you're going to see 7 or 8 man protections, them going to some play action passes. And that's where Daniel Jones has been at his best this season. Outside the numbers, 19 for 20, 209 yards. He's been really, really good throwing deep outside the numbers, 5 for 8 with a touchdown in the 0 for 10 range. So this is an area where he just has been exploiting defenses. And I guarantee you they're looking at this Rams secondary and those outside corners are saying, hey, Like, we can beat those guys, and we have the personnel. And yes, Michael Pittman isn't A.J. Brown, but he is someone that has that same size and has that same level of physicality.
Yep.
So that, to me, is where the game's going to come down to for the Rams on the defensive side. I have more trust in them. I have more trust in them stopping the run because of what they did against Saquon Barkley. So I would rank it right there. It'd be the secondary, especially the outside cornerbacks, and then it would be stopping Jonathan Taylor in this run game. I really think that's just going to be the biggest test for this Rams team. And honestly, if they get cooked again and there's a reason why this team loses, I'm exploring the trade market. I truly am. Like, I'm in pure panic mode.
I wouldn't be surprised. I think you're right. I think that if that is really a soft spot to the point of I don't know if we can fix it, then I think that may be where they go. I'd add one thing to the list. I don't know if it's ahead of either of the two things that you mentioned. I touched on it a second ago. Matthew Stafford needs to be a lot better. And look, he's a great player. I believe he ends his career in the Hall of Fame, but he had about as bad of a game with the Rams as you're going to see him have last week. And he doesn't have to get I'll give him maybe a C-, but he doesn't need to go to A+. He might. I mean, shoot, we'll all take it. But if he delivered just a C or a C+ against the Eagles, they win that game. And you talked about it a minute ago. The Rams bounce back and have that angry win. I think Matthew Stafford's going to be on point this week. And if he is, he may be able to cover some of those problems in the secondary because the Rams may go out there and score a boatload of points, and it may not matter what the defense looks like, at least for a week.
I totally agree. I think that this is a game that is Matt Stafford going to have a great game? That remains to be seen. But I think that this is a game that sets up for him to be more of that quarterback that we know that he is, right? I mean, the Rams have had one of the worst pass protections in the league so far. He hasn't had a ton of time to throw, but still, even when he has, he was missing throws that he'll be the first guy to tell you that he should have made. And the truth is, with this Rams team, for them to have any chance of winning the Super Bowl, they need the A to A+ version of Matthew Stafford. This is not a team that is going to win a Super Bowl or win this division or come out of the NFC if they're getting the C+B version of Matthew Stafford. He does have to be great for this team to be great.
Yeah, look, and here's the other thing. If he has another game like he had like he did in the second half against Philly, and really the whole game, if we're being honest about it, all that question about his back is going to start coming back again, because when you see him missing open guys, that's not who he is, right? That Matthew Stafford missing open wide receivers is there's something else going on. So one game, bad game. One game, it's like, everybody can be off for an afternoon or whatever. But a couple of games, all that conversation about his health, his back, everything else is going to bubble right back to the surface.
Yeah, if the back is not doing well, then I hope that he changes his endorsement from the sleep number to the amortal chamber. Like, he should already be doing that. Just him and his wife do the commercials. Him and his wife, Kelly, doing the commercials in the amortal chamber instead of the sleep number. I think that should be the move.
Like Indiana Jones and the Curse of the Immortal Chamber or whatever it is. I think that was the name of the movie.
I can't top that. We'll go to the next segment. Okay. Drop the mic. Absolutely. Get it. We're in LA. Get the screenwriters at it in theaters. Harrison Ford, he's on a TV show now, right? On Apple Plus.
I can't watch TV anymore. There's too many things. I gave up. It's a glut of choice. I quit. I just watch Dodger games, Rams games, and that's about it.
Yeah, my wife tried to get me to watch the new Alien show and this new Lover show for Amazon Prime. I'm like, dude, if it's not South Park from 2009, I can't do it. You know what I mean? But
I'll watch Seinfeld from 1997. That's still in my rotation.
Oh no, 100%, no doubt about it. But coming up next, we'll get some predictions. How will this game play out? That's going next on Locked On Rams.
All right, the weekend is almost here, so it's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash streaks, saving money every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. So let's break this down. Let's talk about Puka Nacua, who delivered in a big way yet again. Puka Nacua has been the go-to guy for Matthew Stafford pretty much all year long. We've seen Devontae have some pretty nice moments, but when they needed to have it against Philadelphia, no hesitation, no delay, Puka Nacua comes through. And if you've been watching all week, you know that performance was not a fluke. Puka has been on a streak all season long. And just like Puka delivered for us and the Rams, DoorDash delivers for your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday you order. Stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. Also, let's talk about my friends at Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride, with more IIHS Top Safety Fit Plus awards than anyone else. That's of August of this year. From footwork to breathwork, we know that athletes, they sweat all the details, right? Mazda, they bring that same intention to how they craft every single model. So you can make everyday drives feel like anything but, from smooth handling to intuitive controls. And with all-wheel drive standard in every crossover SUV, you can drive with confidence through almost any season at all. So, like our players, Mazda sweats every detail, because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Okay, Travis. So I think one thing that a little bold on this one, I think that Blake Corum ends up having the better day in the backfield. I almost think he could be the player of the game. And a reason why is the Colts are the best team in the league at stopping man and duo runs. And that is what Kyren Williams likes to do, right? That's where he has a lot of his success. But with Blake Corum, he's a guy that you can use on those outside runs. You can use in those packages. The Colts are allowing 6.3 yards per carry on outside runs, the sixth most in the NFL. The Rams, they lead the NFL at 8.9 yards on outside runs. So I think that Blake Corum, they go to him early and often than you would expect. And I think this is going to be a big game for this offense. I got the Rams winning this one. I think they're getting it to 30 in this one. I got the Rams 30-23 in this one.
I like that. That sounds about right to me. I think that's where it needs to be, because to get to 30, what has to happen, D-Mac? They got to score touchdowns, right? They didn't score enough touchdowns last week. They kicked 4 field goals in the first half. That's just simply not going to do it. So if they can get to 30, I think that everybody's feeling really good about it. I'd be surprised if this defense allowed 30 points to Daniel Jones. But I keep coming back to where they stalled last year. You know, of Josh Carty's 4 field goals in the first half, 3 of them were inside, the 20-yard line. They were short field goals where they just stalled in that red zone. The 51-yarder, sure, those are the field goals that you'll take as, hey, we got something on this drive. But when they're driving that ball inside the 20-yard line, inside the 15, especially inside the 10, which we saw them do a couple of times, and they're leaving with 3s, that's not going to do it. That's why they I know there are 2 blocked field goals. I know Matthew Stafford missed some open guys. I know that they had some, they had blown coverage against Dallas Goedert. I understand all of that. There were some big plays the other way. They turned one of those field goals into a touchdown, and we're not having any of this conversation. And the game is a totally different game. So I like your prediction. I like the score. I'll co-sign that. But the only way they're going to get to that 30 points is if they turn those field goals into touchdowns. And that's always been kind of a weird thing with Sean McVay teams, is they kind of sputter when the field gets a little shorter. And I'll say this, and this is one of my favorite Rams that I've seen in a long time. Puka Nacua needs to be better in the red zone. He needs to be a better red zone threat. He's a great threat from the 20 to the 20. But once you get into that tighter area, it's a little trouble getting in and, as they say, into the painted area. I would like to see that happen this week.
And that absolutely is going to be something to look at in this one. Can you fix the special teams and the blocks? I mean, if there's a block early in that one, it's going to feel like a blown save, right? Or something like that. Just a reoccurring problem.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do like I said, an angry win, a Rams team that is still feeling a little of that burn from last week's loss. And they understand. I mean, going from 3-1, you feel really good about. 2-2, you're starting to wonder, with the way the Seahawks and 49ers are winning games, you're starting to get concerned about the division at that point early on.
I'll say this too. You're right. I agree with what you said. Arizona's not bad. Arizona is, I know they're 2-2, but the 2 losses they had were really narrow losses along the way. So I don't think there's an easy mark in the division. I don't think that any of these are going to be like, oh, okay, you'll go 2-0 against this team or that team. I think they're going to be really hard-fought games throughout the entire division. Like we said, turns out we were wrong, Doug, but we're also right that this Colts game is one of those games you needed to win, right? They're better than we thought, but it's still a game you need to win. That if you're going to get to 10, 11, 12 wins, you're going to win the NFC West, you better win against a team like the Indianapolis Colts.
Exactly. And you're also going to use last week's loss as fire and as fuel to overcome that and get that win. It's like we saw in the last Crusade when Indiana Jones says, you lost, kid, but that doesn't mean you have to like it, right? So I hope they don't like that. When you lost today, kid, okay, that's good. Next week, we'll talk Back to the Future. And
I've never seen it. Was it good?
I highly recommend it, especially Back to the Future 3. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can also catch him on his ESPN LA afternoon show with him and former Rams great DeMarco Farr in the afternoon. So go check that out. I'm sure he'll be talking a lot of Rams football today on this Football Friday. But that's going to do it. My name is Doug McCain, and this is Travis Rogers. And we'll see you next time. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.